Skylanders has been one of my childhood games since I was 4 years old, and I replay it every year for the nostalgia. This year marks their 15th anniversary, and I have decided to rank every Skylander and every game. Let's start with the games. I'll be ranking all 6 based on how fun and interesting I find them to be. And if you can already tell, it's the same factor I said in all my other rankings for those of you who've seen them. But I'll be stating this list as fun to most fun, because I've never brought any hate to any of these games. Or not that I remember, at least. But anyway, let's get to it, because I got a lot of characters to go through after this. Game that started the series. I remember when I was 4 years old and my parents took me to Target to get the starter pack. I could still picture it. The box with Spyro, Trigger Happy, and Gilgrunt. It felt like I was holding magic in my hands. The idea back then of putting toys on the portal and having them come to life on the screen was mind-blowing. Spyro's Adventure was more than a game. It was an experience. The portal of power lit up, and boom, my toy was inside the TV. As a kid, that was pure sorcery. But looking back now, out of all the Skylanders games, this one has the least replayability for me. And that's probably a hot take with a lot of disagreements. It's not because it's bad, because this list is fun to most fun instead of worst to best, but because every game after it just kept improving the formula. The gameplay in Skylanders is simple, maybe too simple by today's standards. The characters don't feel as dynamic, but the combat is pretty neat. Each character gets 2 attacks until you unlock the 3rd one with upgrades. Jumping didn't exist yet, and that alone makes a huge difference. Still, you have to give it credit. The music is whimsical and charming, the story is cozy and easy to follow, and the world feels like a colorful fairy tale, which always made me question, is the world just a bottomless pit? Because the land is in the sky, and the whole world is the sky, and it's never shown what's beyond beneath. How far does it go? Is there anything at all? But, anyway, the original 32 Skylanders have great designs. Even Spyro's design was controversial, and fun fact, this game introduced me to Spyro. I did have a Spyro game on the GameCube at the time, but I didn't get much into it. There's a lot of heart in this game, and for many of us, it's where the Skylanders obsession began. But when I go back to replay it now, it doesn't quite hit the same. Half the levels are too quick, and without the improvements we got in later titles like jumping, better visuals, and more varied objectives, it just doesn't hold up as well in the fun department. But speaking of levels, there were these adventure pack levels that you were able to buy to unlock some levels, which was neat. With all that said, Skylanders Spyro's Adventures will always have a special place in my heart. It started the spark. It made me fall in love with the idea of games that blend toys and adventure. But when I'm ranking these games based on how fun they are to play today, it lands at the bottom for me. A nostalgic gem, but one that's been outshined by the sequels it inspired. After the magic of Spyro's Adventures, the next year brought us Skylanders Giants, and yet, it felt epic. The new edition of Giants meant the stakes were higher, and for a kid who was still hooked on the Portal of Power, this was exciting. Giants were the big new thing, literally. In fun fact, in-game, they were the very first Skylanders to exist, so that means the OGs like Spyro, Gilgrunt, and Trigger Happy were all secondary. Giants kept the same core gameplay loop. Drop a figure, explore a level, fight enemies, collect treasure, but a bit more polished. The graphics were slightly cleaner depending on if you were playing on the Wii or not, and they even had jumping in certain spots, though it still wasn't true platforming yet and only the Giants can do it. But back onto them. They were such a cool addition, but in hindsight, they weren't actually that fun to play. Don't get me wrong, they are strong, can trample on enemies, jump through floors and break through walls, lift boulders, and pull islands, but they're slow and the levels weren't really designed to take full advantage of their strength. Sure, breaking through walls and lifting boulders was satisfying at first, but it gets old kinda fast for some. Some of the Giants do have moves that can make them move faster, but it's not even by much. I mean, Skylanders is a slow-paced game anyways, but these Giants make the game feel a bit like a slog. But I find Swarm to have the best mobility, so I recommend him. The best part about Giants though is the backwards compatibility with older Skylanders. Getting to use all the figures from the first game without needing to rebuy them is genius, even for the rest of the games in the series. Plus, a new edition of Light Core figures were flashy and fun, literally lighting up when placed on the portal. They even released a Shockwave once spawned in-game. But even with all those improvements, Giants doesn't quite break into the top-tier Skylanders games for me. And while the new Skylanders were cool, only a few really stood out as must-haves. It also introduced the idea of Wow Pow upgrades for the Series 2 figures, which was neat in theory, but again, not that game-changing. It was a safe follow-up, and you could feel that the series was still finding its stride. So for me, Skylanders Giants lands to be a little better than Spyro's Adventures. It built on the foundation, added some polish, and gave us a few cool new toys to collect, but the real evolution of Skylanders was still on the horizon. This was the last main game to be released in the series, and it really tries some different things. First off, look how cool these characters are for the roster. They're all Skylanders called Senseis, which all wear a gold belt. They even all master 10 different battle classes. There's Brawlers, Sorcerers, Ninjas, Quick Shooters, Smashers, Knights, Sentinels, Swashbucklers, Bazookas, and Bowslingers. This alone gave the game a really unique flavor and made each Sensei feel like they had their own fighting identity. By the way, Crash Bandicoot was a random but neat crossover. I didn't play a lot of Crash Bandicoot games, but again, it was neat. But anyway, here's the real game changer. You can create your own Skylander. Using these creation crystals, you can build the heroes from scratch picking their element depending on which crystal you have, their battle class, body parts, voice, catchphrase, gear, and even their entrance animation. The combat is honestly the best it's ever been in the series. Smooth, responsive, and flashy. Each Sensei felt powerful and actually different to play. Brawlers can really bring a beating, Smashers can clear out mobs with big swings, and Ninjas threw shurikens in multiple different ways. Besides one. Plus, Skychi attacks are straight up anime finishers, but you need to unlock them for each individual character you have at different levels. Visually, this game is clean, like shockingly polished. The character models are crisp, the environments are being colorful without overkill, and the UI is some of the slickest it's ever been in the Skylanders game. Everything just feels more mature, not in a grimdark way, but like the game grew up just a little with its audience. Soundtrack is underrated though. It's not as whimsical as Spyro's Adventure, but it gets the job done. But the credits have Skylander boy and girl doing one of their raps. This blew my goddamn mind because I was a big fan of them when I was little. The darker tone in some places like the Golden Arcade or Mushroom River give each area its own vibe. And remember those elemental gates? Well, they took them out of the levels and made them their own individual levels, which is kinda cool, but you can't use characters with the exact element from other games. You need a character from this game specifically just to unlock them. And it can't even be Imaginators for some reason. They need to be Senseis, which is really ridiculous and not all the gates I find that interesting. The requirements are similar to Trap Team's gates, but I find that game to be a better experience. Now here's the thing, despite all these positives, Imaginators still sits at number 4 on my list. Why? The gates are one reason, but also because while it's got the best combat and the coolest characters, it loses a little bit of that old school Skylanders magic. The toys just weren't as central anymore. The Senseis were dope, but once you had your creation crystal set up, you didn't need to collect figures like before, and the whole point of Skylanders was bringing toys to life, right? This game kinda pushed that to the side in favor of digital customization. Also, the story's fine, but not super memorable. Although the OG Skylanders do have full dialogue. Chaos is doing his usual thing, and yeah, there's some decent humor.
Well, you know something, jerkbag? I've got some shocking news for you, too. I'm the one who stole your lunch earlier. Ha ha! Chaos!
But it doesn't hit the emotional beats that the older games sometimes pulled off. It felt like it was trying to be the big finale, which it basically was because we didn't get a new Skylanders game after this, besides that mobile game that barely lasted for a while. But it didn't quite stick the landing. Still, Skylanders Imaginators is one of the most stylish, creative, and flat-out fun games in the series. It went out with a bang, letting players take control of their own imagination, literally. It's not top 3 material, but it's absolutely strong for what it is. This is what you get when Skylanders and Fast and Furious make a baby. The vehicles were the whole gimmick, but it actually worked. This honestly surprised the hell out of me. When I first saw the trailer back in 2015, I was shocked by the end because of 2 words: Donkey Kong. Him and Bowser have made an amazing crossover. Look how cool they look. They're even amiibo as well. You can turn their bases on the bottom and switch them between Skylander and amiibo. Anyway, this game straight up took the series in a whole new direction, and I respect that. Instead of just running around smashing enemies with elemental powers, now you were doing air dogfights, underwater missions, and high-speed chases in tanks and sports cars. And somehow it all felt natural. The vehicles are the heart of superchargers. You get 3 types with each one having its own mechanics: land, sea, and sky. You can drive through lava flows in the hot streak, dive in whirlpools in the sea shadow, or even fly doing barrel rolls in the clown cruiser. That stuff is legit fun. What makes it cooler is when you match a supercharger character with their signature vehicle. You could get extra speed, abilities, better handling, or even Diddy Kong. It added a layer of strategy and fun to your setup. And yeah, the vehicles are toys too, so placing them on the portal felt like Skylanders 2.0. The roster itself is smaller compared to earlier games, but tight. Only 20 new characters this time, but every one of them feels polished, and 10 of them are even OGs with completely different redesigns. designs. Each Supercharger character has their own personality and combat style. Splat flings paint bombs, Fiesta dances with skeleton minions, and Spitfire, that dude's a straight up firestorm. Gameplay wise, the levels are outstanding. This game may have the least levels, but they are all very interesting and unique. One minute you're blasting through ruins in a race car, the next thing you know you're solving puzzles in an undead prison. The land-based combat is still solid, but the game shines in how often it switches things up. No two levels feel exactly the same. And the boss fights may not be as creative as in earlier games, but they're fun. Also, real talk, the story goes kinda hard. This is the darkest Skylanders has ever gone. Chaos is trying to conquer the universe with this giant machine called the Sky Eater, and the heroes are constantly on the run. Yeah, it's still colorful, but with this cool apocalyptic edge. So with all that awesome stuff, there's only one issue I have. Forced vehicle sections. Look, the vehicles are fun, but the game makes you use a certain type of vehicle to progress. Well, that's mainly for specific optional side missions. I'm referring to this final level at the beginning. You need to start off the level with a sky vehicle. This is a little ridiculous, because what if you were asking as a kid to go to the store to buy another figure and your parents said, "You're not getting another figure until you beat the game," or something like that, with them not knowing what you want is required to beat the game. If you were one of those kids, then I'm sorry you never beat this game till you were probably older. Another issue is that some people weren't feeling the smaller roster. But overall, Superchargers was a brilliant idea for the series. It's bold, different, takes risks, and most importantly, it's fun. Flying, driving, and battling across a crumbling sky world with a bunch of insane characters and vehicles just works. If Imagineers was the most creative game in the series, Superchargers is the most cinematic. It feels like a full-blown action-adventure movie you can play. This felt like an absolute banger. This game's main gimmick is traps. Like bro, you can literally defeat villains and put them in these little crystals, and then you can play as them. That's a next level idea right there. The portal even had a little speaker in it, so when you caught a villain, they'd talk to you from the inside of the trap.
You haven't seen the last of me!
Ahem! Note to self. If you ever find yourself face to face with a swirling vortex of infinite power, run!
I'm not gonna lie, that blew my tiny brain as a kid. The whole trap and play as a villain concept made this game feel fresh. It wasn't just another wave of new characters. You were capturing the bad guys, turning them good, and then making them as a playable character. It was like Pokemon meets Skylanders. Each villain had their own powers, personality, and dialogue. Choppy Mage, Broccoli Guy, Wolfgang, Chef Pepperjack, they were all so memorable. Some of them even got turned into actual figures when it got to Imaginators. And once you caught them, switching between your regular Skylander and the villain mid-battle made combat way more dynamic. Now the figures this time were the Trap Masters. These were beefed up Skylanders wielding giant translucent crystal weapons made of Traptanium, and they could even break through special crystal barriers that no one else can do. Were they the fastest or most technical figures? Fast, some of them. And technical? Yeah, most of them. And they felt powerful. And in a game all about capturing legendary baddies, having these massive figures leading the charge just made sense. Plus, they came in all elements, so you had a reason to collect more than just one. Enigma, Gearshift, Snapshot, Wallop, some of these guys are still fan favorites to this day. And speaking of elements, this introduced two new elements, light and dark. These elements may have the least characters, but they were sick inclusions. Gameplay wise, Trap Team is tight. This is the smoothest and most refined the classic Skylanders gameplay loop ever felt. The level design was fun and colorful, the pacing was just right, and the way the boss fights played out with the trap mechanic was genius. It also had some great side content like the Chaos Doom Challenge, 100 waves of tower defense style madness, and it honestly just slapped. The replay value in this one was seriously high. Now let's talk about the vibes. The graphics were beautiful for the time and every location popped out with color and detail. In the story, low-key the most emotional in the series. You start off chasing down escaped villains from Cloud Cracker Prison, but the deeper you go, the more it becomes about stopping Chaos from becoming this insane crystal-fused monster. There's actually a moment where the tone shifts and you feel like, damn, things are getting real. The cutscenes, voice acting, and Chaos's over-the-top drama were all on point. It had the perfect balance of comedy and serious stakes. But why isn't Trap Team number one? Honestly, just a couple of things. One, the traps themselves were kinda expensive. You needed a bunch of them. One for each element and one for every villain if you wanted to catch them all. And some of the elemental traps are hard to find, especially the light traps, because they have gone ridiculous in price these days. Also, while the villains were cool, you couldn't level them up like a regular Skylanders game. They had set abilities and no real progression. It made them feel slightly throwaway over time, even though they were insanely fun at first. But even with those small issues, Skylanders Trap Team absolutely deserves its love. It pushed the series forward in a really bold way. The trap gimmick was more than just a gimmick. It changed how the game felt. The characters, combat, and presentation, it all came together like a perfect combo. It was fun, innovative, and filled with personality. Easily one of the most memorable entries in the entire series. what a lot of us would say is the best Skylanders game in the entire series. I remember when I woke up that one Christmas morning back in 2013, me and my family opened up all of our presents, and the first thing I wanted to play was Skylanders Swap Force. This is just amazing. This took everything the series had built so far and just exploded it with creativity, polish, and energy. I mean, the swap mechanic alone was such a big leap forward. It wasn't just a gimmick. It literally transformed how you played. The big hook is the Swap Force Skylanders. You can literally take the top half of one Skylander and snap it onto the bottom of another. Each half had different powers. The top handled combat and the bottom controlled movement. Mix and match 16 Swap Force characters and you get a total of 256 combinations. That's not just clever marketing, it's fun as hell. And yes, I have done every single swap ability. Want a teleporting ninja? Boom, stink shift. Want an ape with rocket legs? Bam, gorilla zone. Want an octopus pirate on a wheelie? You got it, wash charge. There was so much room to experiment and mess around, and they made it matter. The game had swap zones that you can only access with certain types of swappers like teleport, rocket, climb, speed, dig, and bounce. That gave you a reason to explore different combos and keep rotating characters in and out. This is also the game where combat finally felt super tight, characters moved quicker, attacks flowed better, and enemies got more interesting. You weren't just spamming one attack anymore. You actually had to dodge, combo, and even think a little. Plus you could upgrade the top and bottom halves of swappers separately. And yeah, even the regular core Skylanders were great in this one. Popthorn, Roller Brawl, Star Strike, and Zulu weren't just filler characters. They had real personality and great movesets. The level design was hands down the best in the series. These maps were huge and packed with variety. There was always something new to see. And they weren't just big, they were full of secrets, elemental gates, challenges, hats, treasure chests. You could literally spend hours just poking around each level. This was a massive step up. You could tell this was the first game built for the PS4 and Xbox One at the time. It looked clean, bright, and animated like a cartoon movie. The character animations were super crisp, the environments were detailed, and the UI was super slick. The story leaned right into that fun Saturday morning cartoon vibe. Chaos is back, this time trying to use a weapon called the Evilizer to corrupt everything in Skylands. Classic villain move. But the dialogue was sharp, the cutscenes were fun, and the tone kept you smiling without feeling too kiddie. So yeah, why is Swap Force the best out of the 6 games in the series? Because it nails everything. The gimmick is brilliant and actually matters, the combat is fast and fun, the levels are rich and rewarding, the characters are creative, and the whole game feels like the developers poured every ounce of love and effort into it. It's not just the most fun Skylanders game, it's the most complete. You can feel it in every frame, every sound effect, and every boss fight. It feels like Skylanders at its absolute best. From the moment I snapped that first Swap Skylander together on Christmas morning, I knew this one was special. Skylanders Swap Force isn't just the best game in the series, it's one of the best action platformers for its era, and that's why it proudly takes the crown in this list. Alright, moving on to the characters. I'll be ranking each one based on how I find them to be in combat, so this will go by 2 things: offense and defense. Their offense will include all their attacks combined from all their different variants, but the supercharger variants will be talked about separately because their movesets are completely different. Mostly. And their defense will include any moves that evade, block, and have any knockback on enemies to keep a distance. Also any other effects like stun and immobilize. I'm excluding the minis since they're just the same as the regular characters, just tiny, and Imaginators since they'll be different depending on how you create them. And to really test their skills for this, I played with all these guys on Nightmare mode in every game. But the first game didn't have a difficulty selection, but I just rolled with it. Like I said before, we've got a lot of characters here, so without further ado, let's get to it.